Good morning, everyone. My name is Tony Tanzi, Senior Network Engineer with Com Solutions Company. Thank you for taking the time to view this tech tip video. In this installment, we'll be talking about an option in the Service tab configuration of our security policies called Application Default. So first, let's get a little background. Let's first talk about Application ID. So, in the Palo Alto Network's next generation firewall, one of the major differentiators is the ability to identify applications irregardless of their port protocol evasive tactic or SSL encryption, as we can do SSL decryption on the firewall. There are 4 identification techniques that are used to determine exactly what the application is. We use things like protocol detection and decryption, protocol decoding, specific application signatures, and we can use heuristics to look at behavior over time and employ each of these techniques to identify an application running on our network. So again, this is one of the major differentiators. Irregardless of port and protocol, we're able to identify an application at layer 7. So if you were to look at our firewall, under our security policy here, we have a couple fields, one of them being application. So this is where we specifically employ application ID and say that we're only going to allow very specific applications to run on our network. And if we were to go to the Objects tab, we can get a lot of information around those specific application ID signatures. So take, for example, something like Facebook. We see here that Facebook has a number of parts to it, and each of these are separate application ID signatures. So we can get very granular in our differentiation on what people are allowed to access within Facebook. We can allow maybe our marketing department full access to Facebook, so they can do everything within Facebook because they use it for things like recruiting. But maybe our general population, maybe we allow them access to Facebook, but we're not going to allow them to run any apps, do any chat, do any file sharing, email, posting, or any of the social plugins within Facebook. So we can get very granular on what we allow in an application. So one of the strengths of application ID. Other information that we can pull from here are things like well-known port numbers. So we see here for DNS that DNS runs on TCP port 53 and UDP ports 53 or 5353. So these are the standard port numbers for DNS. We also get some additional information here around a risk factor. All applications will be given a risk factor, and that risk factor is based on specific characteristics, whether or not the application is evasive, uses excessive bandwidth, is used by malware, file transfer, has known vulnerabilities, can tunnel other applications, is prone to misuse, and whether or not it's widely used. So depending on the number of these that we match, we'll come up with a risk factor for the application. So now that we have information about some standard port numbers, and we know that we can get very granular with our applications, we go back to our security policy, and we have here our specific applications that we're allowing on our network. So we also have here in the service field a couple options. By default, when you first write the security policy, without changing the service field, that field will be populated with any. What any refers to is allowing only these applications to run, but on any specific port number. So, for example, if DNS was going to try to run on port 80, we would allow it to run on port 80 because it would match DNS, but we're saying you can run on any port number. To use the real strength of application ID, we want to, whenever possible, change this option to application default. So what this means is I'm only allowing these applications, and these applications can only run on their well-known port number. So, for example of DNS, DNS would only be allowed to run on TCP port 53 or UDP 53 or UDP 5353. It would not be allowed to run on port 80. Similarly, if some other application tried to run on port 53 that was not DNS, we would not allow that traffic unless we actually specifically allowed that application. So right now, we're allowing DNS on 53. If something else was to run on port 53, it would not be allowed. So that is the strength of application default. The ability to write policy around an application signature and telling the firewall to only allow that application to run on its well-known port numbers. Because a lot of applications are smart enough to know that if their well-known port number is not open, they'll try to dynamically port hop and typically try to use something like port 80, which is typically always going to be open. So I hope this tech tip was helpful to everyone. Again, my name is Tony Tanzi, Senior Network Engineer with Com Solutions Company. Please visit our website at www.comsolutions.com to find out information about other tech tips and other marketing events going on. And please don't hesitate to call Com Solutions for all your networking needs. Thanks again for your attention and your time.